Welcome everyone to our January 2023 Shire Council meeting. That is the general meeting. I declare the meeting open, and I would like to make an acknowledgement of country. Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands within the Shire and acknowledges the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who reside within this Shire. Item 3 on our agenda is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Jackson, Councillor McCloskey and Councillor Higgins. I believe they're the answer 3. Someone happy to move those apologies? Thank you, Councillor Drew. Second, Councillor Taylor. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting we held, which was a while ago now, 1st of December. Someone happy to move those minutes through an accurate record of that meeting? Councillor Whiteley, thank you. Second, Councillor Drews. Councillor Whiteley.
Commend the minutes for the last meeting. I believe they're true and accurate record.
Any comments, questions before we put that on the minutes of the December council meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to item 5 of the agenda, which is the disclosures of interest, pecuniary and otherwise. No receipts. No pecuniary matters received. Thank you. I have no mayoral minutes. Moving on to item 7 of our agenda, that is the reports of the committees. And the first of those is the meeting of the Warren Public Arts Committee held on Tuesday the 6th of December. Councillor Jackson is absent as chair of that committee. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Walker, perhaps I'm looking at you. You weren't there, but that you may still move the as a committee member of that one. If you're happy to move that, and I need a second, please. Councillor Van Elder. Councillor Walker. Anything that you'd like to add? Minister there, Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor,
you were there, yes.
Look, we've finalised all the draft photographs for the CBD toilet, the Lions Park toilet. They're getting put together by a graphic designer on behalf of the firm, and the other major part is that we've got a little bit of money left over from the Murray-Darling Basin Economic Development Program. It's going to be added to some money that the old Rodeo Committee have. They're putting together and they're putting at least 2/3 of the walls of the one half of the walls of the new toilet block that's going out at the Showgame Racecourse will have rodeo horse type murals put around it for everyone to see. So and that's the relevant recommendations that are being put forward.
Yeah, that doesn't form part of the recommendation. No. So that was discussion, but the recommendations certainly pertain to, which is item 5.1, the 2 toilet blocks and the oh, sorry, that is part of it. Consultation with the Showground Racecourse Committee on that proposal. Sorry, you're wrong.
So just a question that'll be one of our discussions at our racecourse meeting in February.
Yeah, we'll be part of bringing it up in that section relevant to the work out there.
So just a question too, could Susan Parker maybe asked along to that meeting, even though she's not the
well, she's the one who's given. We're actually trying to convince the committee that everything's right. We just convinced her to give the money to the project.
So her rep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that should come out of, that's right, the person who is representing the camp truck Rodeo committee on your committee, yes. And I think perhaps Councillor might liaise with Susie Parker and just get her to have a conversation with that person so that everyone's on the same page.
No worries.
Raymond's, and the town services manager have been talking a fair amount with all the finalists.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the meeting of the Public Arts Committee? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Mannix Committee held on Tuesday the 17th of January. Someone happy to move that? Please, with the minutes of the Mannix Committee be received and noted. Councillor Kinsey is happy to move that. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Kinsey.
Well, there's one thing in this particular one, Mr. Chairman, the insurance problems of Warren postcode 2824. Discussion about, I'm presuming that's premiums on flood and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. People are actually being refused, mostly in town, inside the levy.
Yeah.
But then refused that we will progress with authorities and politicians, because it's a bit unfair when we've got a levy around us. Yeah. To the stage where premiums go from $2,000 to $11,000, or no, we're not prepared to actually insure you.
Yeah. It's the reason I bring it up is that Nevertire itself is subject to one of these, pay a bit more because you get flooded. But I believe that Nevertire's never ever been flooded.
In the same fashion, there are some areas that
Even in the 50s it wasn't flooded. So I just wonder how these insurance companies get away with this stuff.
by postcode.
Yeah, well, this matter, when Minister Klubersek was in Dubbo, the Alliance of Western Councils had the opportunity to meet with her when she was the newly minted Minister for Environment, Water, etc. And that issue, that very same issue was raised by just about every council, Councillor Kinsey. And so, and it's happening right across Australia. So her brief from that meeting was, I understand that she would take that to the Insurance Council of Australia and see if it could start to be dealt with. But I think it's certainly something we can be asking our federal politicians about, because it's just widespread. It's in my view, rorting the system. It's just because it's not a case by case basis. It's a 2824 blanket decision, and it hardly seems correct.
So can we include Nevertire in this stuff? Or?
It's not just one, it's everywhere.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brooke.
I've got a question about paragraph on page 5, paragraph 435, about the Built Environment Collective. Is there an ability to come out here? This is probably a question for the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services. Is it holding us back for our flood claims or any of our compensation or planning for that? Because weren't they the ones who surveyed the roads? They seem to be holding a few of the cards at the moment.
I think Manager of Engineering Services can bring some good news to that conversation.
Mr. Mayor, I had a meeting with the EC last week, and good news is they've progressed with the inspection. They finished inspection of 91 roads. So they're in the process of sorting the data so that we can process the inspection.
All right, so the original one was complete, and this is a subsequent inspection, because it's all based on that initial inspection, wasn't it? That was that benchmarks where we were, and then everything after that is better or worse than that point. Yeah, that's like
Mr. Mayor, there are several events. There's the March 2021 event. It's called AGRN 960. That one was submitted, sorted and approved. So we have the approval to proceed with that. And then there was the November event, AGRN 987. That was overlapped by three other events, that's 1025, 1030, and 1034. So the intention is to use the data we collected for SBRN 987 and combine it with whatever damage happened from subsequent events, and then package up, do a package for submission for that event as a as package one, you may call it, and then as they process the other damages that were not in 1987, that will be packaged too. So there'll be like two packages for that.
Right, so 2 questions. So what was the original survey completed satisfactorily before the floods? And second question is, are we getting value for money out of this organisation? Because they cost a fair bit. It feels like they've been going for years, doing the initial survey of the roads. So are they, are we getting value for money on that?
I've been worried a little bit about it. The problem is that the November, the March 2021 floods. There was as they were finalising the inspections, November, December 21 came along, muck everything up again.
But they would have had all the images, right?
I understand, but and that's why there's between 850,000 and 1.25 million dollars worth of flood damage from March 21 that was transferred to November, December. It then was damaged again in June, July, August, September, October, November with three other claims. They had to redo it again, and in between that whole time, some of the roads we couldn't get on, they couldn't get on. And bottom line is their costs at the moment will eventually be reimbursed to us. Sylvester's on the ball and getting to make sure they actually finalise everything, ready for a new Form 306 that will incorporate everything that keeps moving on and the ones that we're still having to finalise. They are a good firm because Transport for New South Wales trusts them.
That's important.
Yeah, very important. And we just pushing them to get all the work done as much as possible. It's not just let's do the inspection. It is all the photography that relates to that big long map that was on the wall. On each line was actually between 2 and 10 photographs that have to show evidence of. And when you've got causeways that are full of water that don't show the damage, the photographs are useless. Transport for New South Wales won't accept it. You actually have to see the damage. And this is one of the things we've been arguing with even Minister Farrell. It is just ridiculous. What does that do? We have to actually dump rock through the thing, so there's rocks sitting up to show that the causeway is damaged, as an example. Or Transport for New South Wales come out with us and we'll try to drive through some of these causeways to see what. And then their answer back to us was, guess what? Then our costs aren't reimbursable. The Commonwealth won't fund Transport for New South Wales costs to help us do all the assessment. Bank and trust are trusted by Transport New South Wales. We are pushing back, but hopefully it will in the end, by making sure they're called, what's the IRC's called?
Immediate reconstruction.
BEC most of the time can convince Transport for New South Wales before we can to fund immediate restoration works. That, for example, all that area on Regional Road 333, Gradually Lane,
Eudora,
on and on and on. And so in the end, it could be positive, continuing to use BEC.
Okay. Yeah, it's unfortunately it's a confluence of events when we didn't really have the opportunity after that initial one to get everything finalised. Well, I did one was ticked off, sorry, but then it started again and again and again, and you're just playing catch up.
I think it was a great idea to get them, and I hope that they had enough photography to build a datum. This is where they were before the floods, and they're all over the place now, but that's what we go back to. They're either better or worse than they were before.
That type of asset data is going to be helpful for the future anyway.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we did our build, checking photos, before we did any emergency ones.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah, that's right, thank you.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Just a quick question, I'm just wondering, has there been any follow-up with the Western Planning supply?
Yes, they just haven't come back to us properly and fully yet.
Councillor Walker?
Very interesting. Now, I'd like to ask a question of the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services. In the Mannix meeting itself, there was a discussion around the Warren Floodworks location map, and that detailing in blue the licence flood meters contained within the Warren local government area under the Water Act 1912. I'm just wondering, is there...
They're just approved levies. Approved levies.
There was a discussion about it.
We were considering trying to put them up on the screen, but we weren't able to. They're approved levies, licensed levies that we've got access to.
That you have access to?
To show on a map, which has now been put in our map info as a layer.
Is there a reason for doing that?
Or just one more bit of information.
One more question.
Councillor.
What page are we on? Page 6, the following page where we just were. In the Port of Newcastle constraints of infrastructure, can maybe the General Manager can explain the relevance of Sandy Hollow and Merrywall in there? I don't understand the context of having that line.
It's the poor quality railway line there.
What was that? What's that whole paragraph about?
Lack of maintenance and standard on that particular part of the line that heads to Newcastle from us.
Yeah, the rail
Rail line, yeah.
So, the background, Councillor Brewer, is the Port of Newcastle will probably become the preeminent deep water port in New South Wales. The Port of Newcastle is really going ahead in a big way. They'll be over the whole, handle the biggest container ships in the world, whereas Botany Bay can't and Port Kembla can't. So what they suggest, what they will do is that a lot of grain, etc., that is grown here will actually exit Australia through the Port of Newcastle. And they're asking, they will have the infrastructure in Newcastle to be a very big and successful port, and it's happening now. And so what they're asking is, okay, what are the blockages in getting produce to the Port of Newcastle? And so that's what all this pertains to, just all the little bottlenecks that add up to being a problem. And it's happening.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more in the correspondence to them. It's also will include the maintenance, Gunnerborough Creek Bridge, the maintenance of the line from there on.
We were invited to
Give us a big list.
Right.
As were all the councils basically in the north something half of the state.
I see.
And so then they go to state government and say, to make this continue to work, which the state government, you might recall there's some toing and froing in Parliament because the Port of Newcastle had to make payments to the other ports in some sort of arrangement that led them to being uncompetitive. Parliament took that out, that restraint of trade, and now the Port of Newcastle is a much freer port, and they can see that their reliance on coal is not going to be something that's going to sustain them in the future. So they're really being very proactive about where's the port.
That's the long-term reason. They're looking for something to replace the coal truck.
But they have the natural facility of being able to take the biggest, most container ships coming to Australia are only about 2/3 the maximum that actually ply the world. New Zealand can take bigger container ships than Australia can. And so they're going to be in a position to take the biggest container ships that occur, and efficiency goes, of course, with that. To do that, Councillor Whiteley's
Just one to Chair, I read his human resources we are comfortable with all these extra work that we're going to do, that we have the manpower issues, human resources is on track.
Not yet. The next month of ads, there's probably a couple more interviews happening for outside. Two divisional managers are putting together information packages for the flood restoration projects manager and the engineering projects and asset manager positions that are one's a temporary one, one's the vacant one from the asset manager. We have a casual staff member in office starting on Friday to see whether that person's suitable, because there's one lady who's just gone on maternity leave. We are pushed in the office, let alone outside as well. We hope by mid-February a 5th grader crew will have started, but it depends on the interviews that are just about to happen in the next week or so, and the extra, everyone's having trouble finding particularly operational staff. Everyone, everywhere, not just Warren Shire people, but everywhere.
Thank you.
Councillors, any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the managed meeting? Or on the 17th of January? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the reports of delegates, and the first of those being the meeting of the Environment Interagency Support Services. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Derrick's happy to move that. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As per the minutes, and thank you, Councillor Walker, for the minutes. There was some good discussion, particularly about the long-running issue of transport, or lack thereof, between Warren and Evertire. So we might be seeing some progress in that area in the months to come. Also continuing to pursue the possibility of the workshop, a community workshop, I guess, resilience building, aimed at people affected by recent flood events. So those are probably the main big issues that we spent time discussing, and the next meeting is coming up quite soon on the 16th of February. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the meeting of the Interagency Support Services?
Just a question, with the Girl Expo, there's no news about when that's going to be happening?
Thank you, through you, Ms Mayor. I don't have any further updates, so not January, no.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Interagency Support Services meeting? No, nothing further. We'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the second delegate report, that being the general meeting, the Outback Arts Incorporated, held on the 5th of December. Someone happy to move the minutes of that meeting? Councillor Bush, happy to move those. Thank you. Second, Councillor Derrick. Councillor George.
There was just, I wasn't there, so I'm just happy to move that. No comments, basically.
Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Outback Arts Incorporated meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 3, the meeting of the Alliance of Western Councils held Friday the 9th of December. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Someone happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Councillors, I continue to see this as a very valuable forum for us to attend. In it now, there are how many councillors are there? 13 altogether from the north and west of the state. So it does have some hitting power, and I believe that the hitting power is such that the member for Dubbo makes a really big effort to attend, and we do get some of the people who can actually make decisions, and it's gratifying. To that end, the initial setup of the Alliance West Council was that it would rotate around each council, and each council would host that event. You might see in the minutes there that decisions have been taken to host those in Dubbo all the time, so that politicians can fly in, come to meet and get out. And I think that was a very reasonable proposition and widely accepted by everyone. Just remind me, Gary, the general managers, when they meet, is that rotating or is that?
Everything's going to be based in Narromine.
Narromine, yeah.
The chair of GMAC rotates, and I think I've got the change on the 10th of February, and there is a pretty high chance that all board meetings will be in Dubbo.
Yeah, that's what we were just saying, that board meetings will be in Dubbo. Look, there was a good representation of speakers at that meeting on the 9th of December. Holly Davies from Transport New South Wales, who's well known to the Shire Council, Councillor McCloskey and Holly have had spent a lot of time together doing exactly what Councillor Bill was talking about, inspecting roads before the advent of video recording and arguing. So she fully understands what we're saying when we say, if you can't see the damage, we should be able to still claim for it. You know, that she understands water over causeways, but he's caught up and did make the point that, as the general manager alluded to earlier, that if they do inspections themselves, they don't get reimbursed by the Commonwealth for that. So, caught in a little bit of a hard place, but I think it was still worthwhile having a very good chat with her. She's a straight shooter, but we were able to make our points there. Also had Rebecca Fox, she's the new secretary of the Department of Regional New South Wales, replaces Gary Barnes. I think she appears to be a pretty capable person. Has some roots in the district. Her family come from Condobolin, and in a previous life was a corporate lawyer, but really, I think she's lost some power here, Gary. I don't know if that was, is that all right? Jody, we're still recording, do you believe? Thank you. So, yeah, she's indicated she might be, again, very helpful and particularly pleased that she has an understanding of Western New South Wales flood and drought, so that's a big positive. Shigolta Ali, from the author of the Macquarie Castlereagh Regional Water Strategy, presented to the wider Alliance Western Council. I think we're just slowly getting some traction there in working towards some sensible decisions. Next part of the Macquarie Castlereagh Regional Water Strategy won't be on public display again until that June, is it? June 21st?
Certainly, you can only start the ball rolling after the
election. Yeah, so it's all a bit held up. But again, worthwhile conversation there, and I think we were able to get our point of view across fairly strongly and fairly plainly. Dougal Saunders in attendance, as I said, Minister for Dubbo and Minister for Agriculture, Member for Dubbo, Minister for Agriculture. We're able to speak with him particularly about the biodiversity offset schemes, which seems to be a real issue for the councils in the overriding costs of offsetting that particular part of development is way out of proportion with what the development's actually worth, and it's really affecting the region of New South Wales. Not so much us at the minute, but you never know, something may happen and we just need to be on that page. We've also got that on board. The other part of his discussion was that Brad Cam from Housing Plus, who we spoke about, the general manager at the Western Council, who is also the executive chair of Housing Plus. They made an unsolicited proposal to the state government to take over the running of all what was formerly Housing Commission houses and get them all up and running. That bid was rejected. 2 out of the 3 groups making a decision were in favour of it occurring. and surprise, surprise, there was a vested interest that in terms of, we'll call it development housing, I've forgotten their name, were against the proposal. And so, unfortunately, that decision was made without any consultation with the member for Dubbo or the Deputy Premier. And so, the member for Dubbo has indicated that decision may well be revisited, and hence we're taking on board that indication from the member for Dubbo that when we have our discussion about Housing Plus, etc., and how that might go ahead, because they do have some real credibility with that group. The last one I would say is the Alliance Western Council is making some inquiries with the Office of Local Government regarding the idea of incorporating, so that whether that makes it more feasible for us as an Alliance Western Council to apply for grant funding. At the moment, it's a fairly loose organisation. It was an incorporated structure. It does give it some sort of legal entity, and it may well be looked upon more favourably, given particularly the Arana Jail having gone into abeyance, particularly. Councillor, I'm happy to take any questions regarding the Alliance Western Council.
Just a comment to me. I was really pleased to see that like both put stake at it, and it's terrific to hear the announcement that the state government are putting that money forward for the next stage for mainly cancer patients, and I think Shire should support it as much as we can. I think they've had to knock back so many people that are trying to get in there, so it's wonderful this expansion's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, so at that meeting, they were hopeful of federal government funding becoming available, and that was the Building Better Regions Fund has been kiboshed by the new federal government, and so that went by the wayside, unfortunately. But state government stepped up with 2.5, I think it was, Councillor Bruce, to see that happen. So they're doing an exemplary job for Croker and Macquarie Homestead. Endorse your comments entirely. Councillor Whiteley.
Just one question with the Arana Jail in abeyance, or is that still a political football? Is your Alliance of Western Councils going to take that ball, or are we just going to build another?
It won't. The stumbling block with the JO was the regulatory environment in which it operated.
Yes.
You know, it's going to cost you have to have an executive officer of the order in terms of salary of 150 grand. So that's before you even start. I think that, so what's happened is that all the councils have resigned from the Arana JO. Those resignations have not yet been accepted by the minister, so that's why it's very much in limbo. There's 300,000 or so sitting in the bank account of the Arana JO. The chair, or the former chair of the JO, has indicated that they'd like to pay that money back to the state government, but they're non-communicative about it. So it's still one in my view, the too hard basket. I think we'll make much more progress. We set that aside, the JO, just almost forget about it. And the Alliance of Western Council is going to be a very valuable organisation for us going forward, I believe. Yeah, I think it's been shown by the people who are willing to come to our meeting. Councillor Brewer.
Mr Mayor, it wasn't mentioned in here, but there was I'm surprised that we're not talking about the maintenance and of the red fleet and where that is for councils. That's kind of gone a bit cold, but I think I read something before Christmas where the state government's still pushing for councils to take control of the red fleet assets. I thought this might be a forum that could be discussed as well, because we're all in the same situation. No one wants to do it, but it looks like it's going to be forced on us at some point if nothing changes. If there's another opportunity for this type of get-together, can we or even outside of that, maybe the general manager's got some views on that or an opinion on that, where that is, because that's a looming state government, a state election coming in 10 weeks away, something like that, so everyone's gone quiet on it.
My first comment is the previous meeting with the Vice President Councils, Minister Saunders was there and very much took our view on board, and it was a much stronger issue at that time, granted. The country mayors have taken that on board and making it an election issue. So there is a forum mid next month, about the 20th of February, where politicians have been invited to a forum by local government New South Wales on one day and then country mayors the next day. That issue has been raised. My understanding is the opposition parties, the Labor Party, has indicated that they will not seek to have the Red Fleet on council as a depreciable item. The other side of it is though that for us it is, in terms of impact, a negligible impact in terms of a financial sense. Our auditors, I'll defer to the general manager and management administration.
Till a couple of new trucks have just turned up, I think we could depreciate on the order of about $40,000. Pretty insignificant compared to having assets of 300 million.
But nonetheless, the point remains, Councillor Brewer, yes, we haven't got any control over those assets at all, so why are they on our books? So it will continue to be an issue, that's for sure. There's probably other issues to a certain extent, roads and flooding, etc. So, but it's still on the agenda, Councillor Brewer, but I'm pretty sure of that. Any further comments, questions regarding the Alliance Western Council's meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 9 of our agenda, report to council policy, there are none of those. And on to the reports of the general manager. First of those being the outstanding reports checklist. I'm happy to move that information to be received and noted. And like council, I've just draw your attention to a lot of items on there that have been asterisked for removal. So as we're going through those, just be sure that you're confident that those have been completed before they come off that list. So councillor Kinsey, you're happy to move that, the item 1 of the general manager's report? Yep. Seconded, councillor Drews. Thank you, councillor Kinsey.
The Levertire coverage. I heard on the news the other day that they were, I can't remember which minister it was, it was a straight job anyhow, but they were saying that they were going to force, I don't know how to say this, but virtually they were saying exactly what you said, the general manager about making these telephone companies put towers up. But the fact of the matter is that even the minister in control of it, I'm trying to say, doesn't know what's going on.
Very, very, very soon the obligations will disappear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Kinsey.
Mayor, very importantly, the one at the bottom of page 4 is getting asterisk.
Yes.
Considering the final recommendations relating to the one on the bottom of page 5 today. The code of meeting practice is finalised, and we've had a practice of doing an acknowledgement. Very well done, Mr. Mayor, wasn't it?
Not a problem. Easily chaired. So, a couple of questions. Sam, for the equestrian arena, I've just written myself some pencil notes. How is that progressing? And I might refer to
the next couple of days it should be all finalised and finalised sand-wise. I think I think there's at least 2 days of just levelling it happening, probably finished by Friday. Then next week, just tidying up all the drainage on the outside, general tidy up. We've got a specialist contractor coming with a vehicle that has the ability to go underneath the annex, on the ceiling of the annex. And hopefully within a week, the shed, a lockable shed over the top of the pumps for the misting system. And then we start to talk within how it's going to be operated and helping the developed stores to operate as well.
Just a
Question,
so you have the adult lighting, are you going to get them to come in and have a good inspection while the sand's going down?
That's been happening continuously.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Good.
It seemed to me that there's a lot of Van Egans turning up.
Okay.
One Van Egans.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. It's just page 17, it's about the waste depot. Offered these alternate arrangements with both in our one Shire for a temporary disposal solution for the next flood occasion. I just wonder what that entails. Please.
The General Manager, I think, or
At the time of writing this report, there wasn't a need for the asterisk, and then it all happened on the 21st, meaning we've moved. So that's the alternative arrangements of travelling the waste to Narromine and Nyngan during the flood.
But it didn't happen this time.
We did.
Also, it was dumped here, then taken to either Narromine or the Bogan tip.
Our garbage contractor was either taking the garbage to either Bogan tip, but then closed at the same time as ours. They got just flooded as us, or the Narromine tip. But now that we're back, in fact, Saturday the 21st might have been public opening, but Friday the 20th was garbage contractor opening. He was able to do it. But this report was finished 2 or 3 days before. That would have normally been asterisk, it's finished.
All right.
Councillor Wiley.
I see the final family health centre is asterisk, and is there any feedback to the council or the GM re the changeover, and that is with RFS, the operation is everything?
Nothing we can report in public.
Yeah, comment would be, I think it's been a good result for the community, really, and I see that they'll manage that facility pretty well, and certainly try and bring on a strong cohort of doctors to be in that facility as well. So I think the end result was probably as good as we could ever have hoped for.
We expect the well-known doctor service to be there forever.
Certainly hope that's the case. Councillor Walker and then Councillor Lewis.
Just wondering, the last, about the vacation care service, is there no way forward or offering? I realised, talking to one of the previous supervisors, the training that's required and the amount of information that they need to experience they need. But is there any way of maybe putting that out there that, the council is willing to train someone for the position?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Right, just sort of ask. It's supposed to be.
Send this report to the last
For the last six to 12 months, as the problems arose, that's exactly all the things that we were trying to do. And that's why it's very easy to say no, sadly. If we were a much bigger facility and we had full-time staff, we'd have a little bit more chance. But again, we could have trouble even then, people saying, moving with their partners away and saying goodbye to us, and then having a small chance that others might take them on. But that's not completely in the wind.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate, it's just the circumstances and the way that the service you get and the training you have to provide the service. Yeah, it's becoming a little bit onerous. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Brewer, you had a question?
Yeah, just a clarification on top of page 6, public art, private murals. Where we've got Halls Committee there, I'm assuming that is reference back to the Warren Rodeo Inc. And so full disclosure, I'm one of the executive on the Warren Rodeo Inc. And I'm not due for a meeting for some time, but I will progress that outcome. Because the member mentioned doesn't have the authority to actually commit funds, though I'm sure she'd like to. It's got to go to the committee, of course. So it's not a done deal.
Different committee, I reckon.
Can I comment?
Yeah, Councillor.
The horse committee has got nothing to do with the radio.
It's a different funds, different
thing that's historically.
All right, so, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I asked staff to clarify that, and it hasn't changed. It's not your horse committee. It's the old Rodeo committee, that there are now only 2 80-year-old plus members who are responsible for the money, and they're very, very concerned about that particular problem I've just stated. And that's why they're trying to disburse the funds that they're responsible for. And it's the old never tire rate. Correct me, please.
The committee that has those funds, and they're for the shade structure at the cemetery was also something that they did. Has got nothing to do with the current radio committee. They owned an asset of horses which they hired to the radio committee 30 to 40 years ago. And they have a number of funds, and Gary, the general manager, is completely correct. There is only 2 of them still with us.
They're trying to disburse those funds to
Mr. and Mrs. Parker. Forgive me, I can't remember who it is.
Thank you.
Couple of questions to the manager of health and building. Solar panels installed.
Yes.
At the 5 sites.
Correct. Yes.
Commissioned yet?
Yes.
Done up and running.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Just a reference to the plant that were mentioned, 107. I just might refer to the Manager of Engineering Services just to explain what's happening with plant 107 and the other couple, 31 and 165, and explaining what they are and then what's going on. So we decided to keep 107. We had a discussion at the last meeting about the appropriate use of potentially vehicles that we're going to offload, and so decisions been made about where that might go, and the plant committee may be familiar with that, but I think this is why the council understanding what's happening.
Mr. Mayor, plant number 107 is a Suzuki dump truck, and it was decided to be sold after flood damage works. Yeah, so it's going to be used for flood damage works. Then that's all.
And then you are selling 31
And
and,
the newbie prime mover,
yep,
same, yeah.
and 165.
Super.
The super dog, okay. So,
They're in very poor condition.
so after Councillor McCloskey's questions at the last meeting, we've only taken, what we're working towards is that 5th grader group. And so 107 will become the water truck, is that what
Yes.
I'm understanding? For that 5th grader crew, you've got the graders still
Kind
with
of.
us.
We moved into one of the crews, and the big water cart will be going to the 5th grade crew. What we're talking about is the second last one on page 12. Originally, we were going to sell 107, 31 and 165. We're retaining 107 for a while. It'll be made into the spare water car, which now someone else will have, and another large water car will go into the spare crew for a while. We've got somewhere between about $120,000 and $160,000 left in the 22-23 plant replacement vote, and part of talking to plant committee in the next month or so, next couple of weeks, is look, 31 and 165 are extremely poor condition. Every time the truck goes out, it comes back needing something to be fixed up on it. We want someone else to have that problem and not us. If we see a truck and trailer combination like that is still very valuable. If we see a good truck and trailer combination of that order of $120,000 to $140,000 for the whole unit, we will talk to the plant committee of trying to buy it. Just to have as a spare truck to do little bits of rock here and there, as well as our larger road training unit. But trying to get rid of to someone else the 131 and 165. They can consider us.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kinsey.
We have a flag committee meeting next month, early next month,
Very soon.
yeah, that's it.
Oh, the 30th or the 7th?
Uh,
I think so.
Yes.
The first couple of weeks of February.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 1 of the General Manager's report, the outstanding reports checklist? Further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the reports of the General Manager, the committee and delegates meetings, in recognition of, on the first paper, one Shire Council being in Happy Town, for the duration of item 2 of the General Manager's report. Someone happy to move Councillor Kinsey, second Councillor Walker. Councillor Kinsey.
just add one to that list, Mr Mayor, Castle Road on the 27th, I believe. I'm not sure about that day, but it's next month, anyhow. Late next month.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Thank you, those. Seems mind if you need to comment on there. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the General Manager's report? No. No.
Look, one really complicated one, Mr Mayor. On the 7th and 12th, you'll see that Australian National University Nature-Based Solutions for Flood Resilience project. They were successful. ANU have been successful with a fairly large, $2 million grant program to actually try to investigate natural solutions for flood resilience. And part of, we're one of the 7 or 8 in Australia that are going to try to help them. very applicable. Might head us in the direction of having some more flood studies. But I wish them luck with coming up with nature-based flood solutions.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the general manager's report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 3, the general manager's report, that being the works progress report in relation to infrastructure projects. Someone having to move item through the general manager's report. Councillor Brewer, happy, thank you. Second. Councillor Bruce, thank you. Councillor Brewer.
I'll just put it in the recommendation, and give it's a fair bit in there. Some of them have already discussed and been over previously in the general manager's report. I don't believe I have any in here that I've noted for discussion. So just moving the recommendation at this point, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Question from me regarding larger, I'm not too sure exactly what that page is on, but find out. Larger sliding door at the Faulkner Lounge, has that not been installed, or is it has been done? Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
comment just, it was there for the
Twilight
racing, right, and also I have to comment that the Faulkner Lounge looks fantastic and really good.
Yeah.
And the realignment of the stairs up to the viewing area, it just looks fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, that. Sorry, Councillor White.
I'd just carry on with that Faulkner Lounge, that I'd compliment that's very well done. But one point you might bring up at your Shire and Racecourse Committee, the PA system of the races is inaudible in the lounge. You can't hear the race caller from in the lounge. You have to rely on the TV, which is not big enough for that area of that amount of people.
Is it because there's no speaker? There is a speaker in there.
Well, it's not working.
It's not working. Is there? I'm sure there's a speaker in there.
I'm not sure it's still.
Yeah.
It's come from the aid. I know that last race as well.
I brought it up with the Race Club Committee, that they didn't seem to know it.
And we'll check it out, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you. A question. Sorry, Councillor Walker, you have a question first? Did you? Okay.
Thanks. I'm just wondering, the one for the Crown Reserves irrigation system is there's some other money for for drought proofing out there. Is that the same thing for the race course?
Mr. Mayor, it's a very funny name. What it is irrigate it's $300,000 inclusive of GST, so $272,000. It's a weird name. It really is for the irrigation system of the track and some fencing, redoing of the fencing of the where the horses congregate and come in. To do the job is much more than 272, and so we're liaising with the Jockey Club and Racing New South Wales to get much more money, contribute some of that 272, using some of the existing irrigation facilities, but really making sure that we don't have to rely on dragging the old system around, but it's much more than 272, and so that's why it's a little bit left in abeyance at the moment. Racing New South Wales can be very forthcoming if we can show that we're adding money to things.
Thank you.
A question regarding the cricket pitch is, GHG back on the site, it was indicated that late January, they made a,
I haven't seen the colour of the pitch has changed, but I don't know what works happening there.
thank you, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just another question, Officer Sport, DFID grant program. I'm just wondering if in time, and maybe there is one there already at the visitor information centre, there might be an idea of having one there.
Yeah, I believe the more of these we have around the township, the better.
Training for all those.
It is certainly done, the training for those is certainly done as part of a first aid course, but the instructions on that, they're in there, in the box, it is pretty, it's quite basic. The view, I think you're going to be hard pressed to do any damage. If someone's in trouble, you're not going to do any damage. You're going to,
Great thing.
there. To me, just a question regarding timing, and might be addressed to Councillor Goose. Showdown Race Course, the proposed new toilet facilities for ladies in the existing ladies toilet facilities. Timeline, have you got a timeline for that, Councillor Goose, do you know? Or
Late May, early June.
so show is
After.
after the show. which is when the-
So I think they're going to start, there's going to be some
Demolish
progress
one.
there.
Yeah.
Demolishing
beforehand.
ladies. Because kind of most of it goes over the top of the ladies.
People really show.
I'm I'm not 100% certain, but we will provide other facilities.
Oh, that's the question I'm coming to, sorry, yeah. I didn't ask you the right question, yeah.
But, yeah, sort of, but we will muck people up, but we will provide facilities.
Thank you, that's right. That's what we collectively need to know. Thank you. Any further on item 3, the General Manager's report, the works progress report regarding infrastructure? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 4, regarding the Carter Oval Sporting Precinct and the request for an allocation of 400, no, we're on 460. 460,000 to be allocated from restricted funds for the improvement replacement of the facilities at Carter Oval. Is there someone happy to move that recommendation? And then we can have a bit more enlightenment. Councillor Taylor's moving that. Second. Councillor Bruce, Councillor Taylor.
I support the recommendation, Mr Mayor. It's unfortunate that flooding has probably delayed the process, and of course costs have increased, and inflation of course, but there's no good having something down there that's not completed to a satisfactory level in all eyes. It's ours in the community, so I think we need to do it properly.
I wonder if, gentlemen, you might just give us, the information is probably pretty much there in that report, on a tablet, it's a bit harder to read, but I think you wouldn't mind just giving an update on what that progression is. I know they're all tabulated there.
So, what this funding won't do is on page 42, that's pretty important. So, next stage for the future is really development of the car park near the depot, 50% of the landscaping, and 50% of the shade trees, planting garden beds. And we believe with what we're considering, a fair amount of landscaping and shade trees going to happen anyway. And so that's why it was easy to take out about half the shade trees and landscaping, because it's pretty extensive. The car park and near the depot is semi-sealed and a reasonably tidy area, and that's why it's a lower priority than all the rest that we think we're in trouble trying to get extra grants for. It's just, in the end, everything's now coming to a conclusion after spending lots of money previous years, a reasonable budget this year. We need an extra 460,000, and it does have some contingency in there. Contingency, infrastructure project manager is making sure that little things here and there are covered. It'll allow us to actually have exceptional facility by September this year. And we've been just trying to make sure that having that there, make sure we don't miss a damn thing. And it's possible as well as possible.
Thanks, I just wondering, so this is the grants, isn't it? But it was obviously contingency when you were costing the original grants.
Not really, Mr. Mayor. Not really. It's over the years, it's just added up. Now, here's the complete project, and we need an extra 460,000 to finish it properly. And look, it's one of the main reasons why we've got that infrastructure fund in there.
A healthy amount.
Yes.
Councillor Brooke.
I've got a question first. What happened with the damage to the cricket pitch in getting that covered cost-wise? When there was, I think it was cattle.
It's one of the items that I have to progress, but outside of this stuff.
And secondly, before we put this to a vote, we've also got another $90,000 for housing improvements in the back of this document out of the same infrastructure fund as well. So that'll be, well over $500,000 being pulled out of that fund. I'm not necessarily against this. I'm just saying that we're about to pull well over $500,000 out of that fund today if both of these items get up. So we need to think carefully about whether we can afford to do it this way. Whether I'm assuming that these items are costed and that there's no further blowouts on costs for this $460,000 that we're looking at here. In past projects, we've had blowouts here and there. I don't have to really go over much ground on that. I'd like this to be the last time that we dip into this fund for this. I'm positive about the Carter Oval precinct. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be a wonderful jewel in our crown, but it's cost us a lot of money. It costs us heaps of money. And whilst this fund, it makes an awful lot of sense for housing refurbishments, it doesn't necessarily fit with me fantastically for this. It's a lot of money. Some of those things, I just wonder whether on that list, first of all, again, I assume they're scoped and costed. Some of those things, where could we make cuts if we had to? And we're about to, stand $460,000 worth of extra work here. Yeah, are there any savings to be had?
Mr. Mayor, the $460,000 of extra work has a contingency, but what the officers have been able to do is now of the 30 items that are all listed on page 43. A majority of them are actually costed exactly Just say, for example, the 2.3 procurement of turf is exactly the quote that we've accepted. The lawn turf installation on the soccer field is exactly the quote that we've accepted. The majority of them are exactly it. I feel very confident that the 460 ask is it, because they've done the work to actually know exactly what the costs are up top. And at staff level, the matters that were removed were reasonable to remove, because nowhere in any plan anywhere was $200,000 worth of landscaping. We reduced it to 100,000. And landscaping is required, and I think what was envisaged was 5 seats and a couple of trees. And we have to do the job properly for the future. So nothing was envisaged to make sure that a secondary entrance car park over near the depot was done. It's a secondary priority. It's been taken out. The 50 car parks being done properly in a proper entrance road and curb and gutter properly costed to almost $200,000, which is about the cost of what's required.
Excuse me, on that one, that 50-car car park, I'd argue that's also a shared responsibility of the works yard as well.
No, that's in front side. We're talking about off Stafford Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. And a correction, the original diagrams or the original drawings, when we started all this, had, I don't know what you call it, but a roadway for bikes, small kids on bikes, that was fairly heavily landscaped at that time as well. So at some point there were drawings.
And that's another grant for another time. We've got that, put that grant in.
So that doesn't actually finish this then?
No, that's nice grass area at the moment.
Right. Okay.
The infrastructure project manager and his cohort, meaning town services manager, divisional manager and services, have had a pretty good go at costing that as well as they can. Several times where we're all meeting to be very critical of all the items.
So we've accepted some of the quotes prior to having funding committed?
Because don't forget, we've still got 1.875 million. We've only spent only allocated so far 1,138,000. So there's no car park there yet. There's no curb and gutter there yet. But the turf's been organised. The cricket pitch has been organised. Things like the secondary cricket pitch is being organised, but not ordered yet. Things like that. The fencing's been done. There is a period of time that we will stop and hand over, but it wouldn't be as good as we would hope. The building has been organised because there's almost a budget of almost 670,000. Yeah, 669,000. We're to the stage of spending most of committing most of that 670,000. But the final bit is saying, okay, let's make sure the project gets completely finished properly, minus a few stage 2 stuff.
I think we need to be mindful, councillors, this was a project that we embarked on thinking over 10 years we might get there. And realistically, I just got what you actually started at this, the skate park was the first stage, splash park, etc., lights. I think it's been accelerated to a certain extent. And as a result, the planning hasn't been perfect because I think we didn't expect the grant funding that was occurring to occur, and we've got probably further along the track than we probably originally anticipated. So there's all those other things like pathways and things that probably really fully costed. And we just sort of said, wow, we're getting close to a finish here. Let's
Costed
it
one
properly,
It's
yeah.
$142,000 for the concrete path. Not built yet, but needs to be done properly. And be, yeah. Bottom line is what I'm trying to do is make sure people know exactly what needs to happen to finish, and I'll tell the council this is what's needed to make sure the job's finished completely.
A further question, Mr. Mayor, if I might, and I don't want to harp on all of this. I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, when this goes to tender for concreting, we've got a fair bit of concreting in front of us. We need to make sure that the tender response for that has a long enough time frame in it so that we're not going back and it blowing out. And once it's accepted, that's it. You know, I'd say, can we be careful on that, because we've had to go and make another allowance already for projects that have costed more than we thought, and timeframes have run out, now it's dearer, and so had to allocate more money. And I'll ask you directly, can we afford to do this? It's $460,000. Because that's what we're asking here. We're talking around a whole bunch of things. It doesn't sound like we want to trim anything out of this. There are other things afterwards, yes, to finish off. Can we actually afford it?
The council has put in a $460,000 allocation to a facility that it has had over the years over $3.5 million of the grant funds.
Okay, but can we afford it?
There's $2.4 million in an infrastructure reserve that this was what it was for. Not as if there's $500,000 and we're taking 460. There's almost 2.5 million that we're taking 460 from. This is what it's for, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whiteley.
I've only got one comment that I'd back up the general manager. This needs to be finished and it needs to be done properly. Whether we can, and I appreciate the 500 or 460 odd thousand, but I think the community expects that building site down there to be finished this year.
Reasonable comment. I think community expectations are quite high given where we started. I think we always knew that it was going to be a longer term plan, and it actually has turned out to be. Point accepted though, it does look like a building site. Yeah, we know where it's going, but the public don't know that how.
I didn't mean that. Probably the terminology was harsh in there, and we've had floods and we've had a lot of natural problems and man-made problems, but yeah, I think we'll be very proud of it when it's finished, and I think we, as an organisation, need to have it finished.
Thank you. Any further comments in item 4 of the general manager report regarding allocation of funds from the infrastructure projects reserve to the Carter Oval project? Councillor Kinsey.
I think for what it's worth, Mr. Mayor, we should get on with it while we can still afford it. Because this time next year is going to be even dearer. Let's get it done.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Comments, questions? Councillor Walker.
I'm just wondering that fund that it's coming out of,
Infrastructure reserve fund, yes.
so how long does it take for it to get to that sort of amount? I mean, how do you put in, so much per year?
Depends on projects and a surplus in projects and projects running well and having a budget that comes back into that infrastructure reserve program. It's been down as low as, I don't know, less than $1 million, hasn't it? Yeah, and it just, use it for a worthwhile project And that, this is exactly, as the gentleman's alluded to, this is what it's for, it's just to get a project up and ticked off. And,
So it could take some time for it to get up to what it is now.
oh, certainly, I don't think it's really been much higher than this, and I'll be yeah, but we were allocated money.
Yeah, 200,000.
That, yeah, we were, so, yeah.
Normally somewhere between 200,000 and 400,000 a year goes into certainly 200
Okay.
of, if the year,
Is okay.
if you have a good year or 1 year.
And that's where we look at the budget in the budget review process, what is the carryover, what can be put into, and that's our internally restricted funds. This one as opposed to external, particularly, which is obviously grant funding, etc. So we have the ability with our own surplus funds to decide where they're going, and this is money that's not allocated to anything particularly, but it's for an infrastructure reserve for this type of project. Councillor Derrick.
And just adding to that, just to make the point, this is not money that could be spent on roads or services or anything that's not a specific project. So it's not taking money away from
No.
anything else.
Yes.
It is a key project, it's a lot of money, but yeah, I do share the concern that if we delayed by 12 months or longer, it's only going to be less affordable and a lot more expensive, and I feel that's one of the do need to get it done as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, we're in there running now. In my view, we keep it running and get it done. And the momentum still is with us now. We're getting the grant funding for the change rooms there. The swimming pool will go ahead. That whole precinct will look pretty tidy. I think we'll be, as Councillor White said, pretty pleased with the way that's gone from a pretty ordinary caravan park, neglected area, to a pretty pristine area. So, in my view, we continue on. Any further comments, questions before we put item forward? If there's nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to item 5, the General Manager's Report, affordable housing opportunity, and that relates to the Housing Plus proposal. Someone happy to move the recommendation for item 5? Councillor Walker, sorry, did you move that, Councillor Walker? Thank you. Second, Councillor Kinsley. Councillor Walker.
I look on this heading to the recommendation and this measure.
I wonder whether councillors, if you have a look at the map that goes with that, I'm looking at, I can't do it properly, this again, 56, the one that's outside the centre area. I'm just wondering, councillors, whether that would be worthwhile holding that one out of the Housing Plus proposal and just going for the centre block. You happy to cover it?
Well, Mr. Mayor, just, but that's what the recommendation actually says. It gives the committee of delegated authority to actually say, guys, we must refer that you actually try to take the middle ones and leave at least one of us. But they may come to, oh, we're thinking of putting this lovely townhouse facility there as well. We would then, you just know that we're thinking about that the 156 has been one of the ones that could be left for sale and not in the game. But if they come up with a really good proposal, but that's why it says all or most, to allow us to actually say, have that good discussion with them. If you feel comfortable with that.
Councillor Whiteley.
Question, this photograph is not current, is it? 57 has a house on it, that's the council, that's council building. 54 in
52.
53 and 54, they're currently privately owned?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What would Aboriginal help have an indication of how many vacant blocks are in the village? In Hope?
Just now, I have other areas where I could develop other estates. For example, Chester and Wilson Street.
Yep.
There are private blocks all around, but not, I mean, for example, someone 53 and 54, he hasn't developed the land, and and I think on the other side, opposite 65, is another one that's for sale.
Yeah.
As an example of other ones, that means necessarily go to us to buy vacant blocks of land. But, so there are a few lots of vacant blocks that could be on the market if someone wanted to get rid of them. And as I say, I've got some ideas for probably a small estate, Wilson Chester Street, using land that we own for the future, apart from Gunningborough Estate Stage 3.
And there would be no, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, whilst we commit this in, there is a possibility that they would not acquire all those blocks. They just take, it's an option, is that the right thing?
That's all or most, and
I think in the negotiation, we want to narrow it down to say, okay, housing plus, if you were to go ahead, which blocks would you actually be building on? Would you be using all those internal ones? I think we'd have to be a little bit firm with them and not giving them open slather and saying, tying up everything in the maybe sense, but say, if you fair income, what would you propose here? Come back to us with what you would propose and exactly what sites you would require. And I think we need to be, this is a starting point, I think we need to narrow it down a little bit more and be fairly frank with them about the fact that the upside's all with them, it's not with us, in my view. Sorry, Councillor Bruce and then Councillor Walker.
Can I just ask, Housing Plus, are they, to refresh me, are they private? Or is it a pub, is it?
not for all.
It is private. So just a question, if they went into receivership, they would have already paid for these blocks.
The agreements mean that they're not paying for the blocks until they need to use them.
Which is up to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head.
They're based out of Orange, but with a lot of their people in the Mudgee area. They've got similar developments in Mudgee, like this.
They've got 600,000.
They've over the years they've received government funding, both state and Commonwealth, and what they're after is anywhere between $500 million and $1,000 million worth of funding for future, not just ours.
You know, right, before Councillor Brewer and Councillor, you know, right, the federal government now has a very definite view about provision of housing. You know, it's certainly a very big issue.
Yeah.
So they're hopeful that funding might be forthcoming sooner rather than later. You know, but you can't hold anyone to that. That's just the background of where we talk.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Brewer and then Councillor Walker.
If we sign off on this today, will it go, is there a public consultation period for this? Like it has the potential to have a positive or negative effect potentially on that area. And because it's not just one block that's being sold, it's a significant amount of blocks. I'm not really sure how to put this, but if all of those blocks were taken up as affordable housing for demographics that can't afford housing elsewhere, is that a significant impact on those people who already own properties in Dunbar Estate? And have we considered what the current property owners would feel about this without going to the community on it? Is it something we should be consulting them with?
That would occur, in my view, in the DA stage, so it'd have to be appropriate DA. The other part of it is that it's, I think we need to make the point, it's affordable housing. It's therefore for people with jobs who can pay rent. They're in Mudgee's, and that's the example we know. It's actually council staff who are using these, renting these houses. So it's not social housing, as in terms of welfare dependent people. It is for people with jobs, and I think you'd have to, to follow the due process. It would be at DA stage, in my view, that people could.
But not to sell, to develop.
Sorry.
So if we were to sell those blocks all in one go, that doesn't have to go to DA. That we can do what we like with the blocks.
Yes, absolutely.
But once that's sold to this entity,
yes,
then clearly those people in there would have an opinion about the owner of those new blocks and what they're likely to do.
So the same situation applies to anyone selling it privately. It's no different.
The difference here, though, it's not just one block. It's not all of them, but it's
so and same private developer can come and buy the whole lot of blocks as well. It's no different. You can't make a distinction, in my view, about that. There's covenants on what can be built there. It's quite a transparent. There's the opportunity has been there for 20 years for someone to come and buy it.
Like, I agree, we need to have more housing. It's one of the things that, if there's anything holding town back, it's accommodation and lack of. Just wonder at what point the community understands if they don't watch this and they don't read minutes, then is there going to be some questions asked, I suppose, about the intentions of what we're doing?
Part of the engagement with the community was actually to make them fully aware that what we're progressing is for affordable housing. I was the one who actually received the initial feedback from last year from Gunnerborough Estate people of what was being proposed. They were scared that it was actually social housing, and they were reassured that what it will look like is exactly that beautiful 6-unit facility, even in a larger way, 20-unit probably, nice brick veneer, classy landscaping, the types of the people that, and the type of people who are exactly in our units at the moment.
So, and they are satisfied with
those particular, but we would do a communication marketing campaign over the top of this to make sure that they're aware of that. Everyone, as much as possible. Can't get to everyone, but you try.
So one further question, it's a couple of questions. It's about funding the development, our part of the development. It's sufficiently vague in here how much we're going to spend, but it says something in the order of 201,000.
No, we're spending nothing. We're spending nothing. We're just telling you that we've got
internally restricted funds and operational land reserve amounting to 200. So there's money somewhere.
Yeah, that's for the Gunnerborough Estate Stage 3 for the future.
Okay. But it's going to cost a whole lot more. So Stage 3 is over the back. So
from Pickman Parade.
So why are we talking about that in here? Because it's got nothing to do with this.
It's negating the problem of the community saying, well, hang on a tick, you've just sold 8 or 9 blocks to someone else. When are you going to develop the next stage of Gunnerborough Estate for the future? And that's what we'll investigate and fund, and cost to know what and when we could do it, if we need to do it.
So do you have a feeling for what it'll cost us to develop those blocks?
I would hope that it's less than what Councillor Whiteley said, 50,000. I'm hoping that it's close to the 25,000. The sewage is already there, in the sense of the pump station, but I'm not disagreeing with him either. We need to make sure. I want to know exactly how many another 20 blocks will cost.
And I think we've got a responsibility to provide more blocks, more residential blocks.
And hence part of the equation is how much will it cost and how would we fund it. And I know, for example, there's probably, apart from the 201,000, was another 70-something thousand dollars of income coming in from sale of other bits of land very soon.
And sold those to the added as well.
Yes. And so then it was always a case of recycling money to get back into making stage 3 a reality. Some of stage 3 is already there because of the sewage pump station that's ready to take the next 40 or 50 lots. But, and that's why that's there, to say, okay, that's one side of the equation, is we get rid of our 8 or 9 blocks. What can we organise for the future or prepare for?
Sorry, Councillor Walker, you had a question after Councillor Walker.
Oh, well, I'm glad, I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Brewer about the community consultation, and I'm glad to hear that that will happen. I'm just wondering, have you shown Housing Plus, I have no idea values of land blocks in the town anymore. Are they low, these prices, that size?
That's the price of the land in Warren.
Okay.
And hence those new prices are renewed prices that we tidied up. They were actually much less than that 12 months ago when we in May 2022. Sorry, that's when we made sure that at least our 9 blocks were actually costed right instead of being 17 or 18,000.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the type of price that everyone else has on their blocks over in that are for sale over in Canterbury Estate.
And you're saying stage 3 will provide what, 40?
Oh no, I don't know. Hopefully 20. But don't take that as gospel result, because we haven't done the full investigation.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Kinsey.
Do we have any idea at all what stage 3 would cost per block? But it's hard to know in the blocks you've got. Is there any, compared to this figure here, probably 25 grand?
Somewhere around that 25,000, I'm hoping, but I'm not prepared to guarantee that.
Fair enough. Yeah. But I just don't give away a block now and we're going to create a zero one later, even though I agree we should be creating housing in town because it's an issue.
And we will always only ever be the main developer of Warren.
No, we shouldn't be.
We have to be the developer, whether it's industrial or residential.
Councillor White.
Yeah, just, well, I agree with this and back Councillor Brewer's, we need housing desperately in this town for Shire employees, police, ambulance, and we've seen what the health had to do at the hospital and the health committee around town. But broaden it a little bit. Do you think us as an organisation should put some thinking into a 20-year plan for both residential and industrial land? I know the industrial blocks with the current LEP are pretty scarce. there's a great area that is zoned light industrial that accesses the highway, which would be,
I think, Councillor Whiteley, I think, I understand your comments, but I think we need to stick to this one at the minute and have this on in a broader discussion at a later time. It's not quite the conversation we're having here at the minute.
Certainly one of the items of economic development
Yeah.
promotions and at zoning and SMT level, it's been thought of. We will have, we've got a resource of economic development visitation manager that will add to the impetus of actually thinking about those sort of things and galvanise this.
Thank you. Let's get back on to the recommendation. Councillor Walker.
I was just wondering, if this goes ahead, and do they build, are they all going to be similar to what's there already with the units, or is it a mix of houses and units, or?
We don't know, but they did about a 20 townhouse unit facility over in Mudgee, and we expect it to look very, very similar as our own one that we built in the early 90s. At 2 to 4 Pittman Parade, across the road from there.
Any further comments or questions regarding item 4, the General Manager's report? Sorry, it was item 5. If being the case, put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to the final item of the General Manager's report, one is the economy consultation report, General Manager's executive summary. Is someone happy to move the recommendation? That's accepted. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a lengthy 10-part recommendation, so I expect there will be questions. I guess noting that this hasn't been a recommendation from the Economic Development and Promotion Committee, but this report was provided to that committee in November. In saying that, I am very comfortable with progressing with the recommendation to the Council. Our next meeting is on the 7th of February, but I think we're in a good position at the moment. We've got our Economic Development and Visitation Manager in place, and I'm very comfortable with the alignment with community consultation that took place in preparation for Laurie Murphy's report from the beginning of August, and also consultation that's taken place since our November Economic Development Committee meeting. I said I'm sure there'll be questions, but I think it's in line with the presentation before and after the November meeting, and happy to have a put forward this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Excused. Certainly, Councillor Curran. Thank you for your attendance. I wonder, I might just defer to the General Manager who chaired that last consultative meeting, and just a comment. In that there were a number of parties present at that meeting, those being Council,
The Chamber of Commerce, the Macquarie Wetlands Association and Riversmart. And pretty close to 10 out of 11 volunteers said, well, that's really great. We would love the council to organise everything the way we're going to do it. And saw that the council was positive in progressing a task force and trying to facilitate that task force, and there were really no other alternatives. And in the end, I think the last one person who probably wanted a different direction realised that that was the way to go. And if the task force gets to the stage of being so successful that it needs to be its own entity, that's what Council, Economic Development and Promotions Committee and Council will make decisions on in the future. We've got a resource that can actually facilitate. There's the mayor and I who can try to push the point of our fellow councils being involved in Destination Quarry Marshes Task Force. And all, Council, Riversmart, Macquarie Wetlands Association and Chamber of Commerce were always going to be the core stakeholders and trying to set the direction.
As background, councillors, what Riversmart essentially were proposing was that a much broader group drive Destination Quarry Marshes, in that it was councils at Canamble, Bogan, Walgett, and a much broader range of people driving the Destination Quarry Marshes. I think in the end, those sort of committees, yes, a lot of maybe potentially good ideas, but they're the second step in getting this going. The first step is just here in Warren, in our view. And I think with just the four stakeholder groups, I think it will actually get up and running much more quickly. I think that the alternative proposal was much too broad. Who's going to run it? How's it going to be facilitated? We have a vested interest in that in Macquarie Marshes. It's within our Shire, the Burma Walkway, Macquarie Wetlands Association. My view is that, and the others around the table, that in the end was that yes, Warren, the Shire Council should be the facilitator of it. The issue that some had was that we hadn't moved quickly enough on getting visitation and economic development manager. That's certainly all now in place. After that meeting, the interviews were about to happen prior to the meeting. That's now concluded. We have someone appointed. So I think we've done what we said we were going to do, and have a quality person, I believe, in the position. So I think it will move forward really well under the direction of Warren Shire Council, and coming through the economic development committees the way that it will work. So that Destination Macquarie Marshes Task Force to the Economic Development Committee to Council is the structure.
I'll just ask, who would be have one of the others? Is that Aboriginal Land Council, or who on here? With others to have one.
Yeah, originally the Destination Macquarie Marshes Task Force, the majority of those ones I've listed anyway. But first four are the main four we just talked about, and then our neighbouring councils, and it's all part of the consultation that the four of us will do to progress, to improve, to get the governance right. And we do want, ask the Aboriginal Lands Council to be a member of for the same reason as Bogan, Canamble, Walgett, we're very lucky. A lot of our neighbouring councils are sending people to the marshes. As Warren Bungles, for example, their Tourist Information Centre is one of the major places that actually sends people to the marshes.
I've got a question to that one, Mr. Mayor. I'm struggling with what it is we're actually recommending here and what's about to become a resolution of council. This looks a lot like a charter or a group of, a list of very good intentions for what we're trying to achieve. But is it really, are these really going to be resolutions of council? Each of these items, because that's what we're asking to do right now. And as an example of that, what is it that Warren actually stands for? Because if we sign off on this today, we're asking that the products and services reflected in the agreed values at all times and be true to what the warrant stands for. What is that? So that's not a discrete outcome of a resolution. I've no problem with that in principle, and I think that is what is within a memorandum of understanding or a charter or something like that. But it's not something that I'm comfortable resolving today. You know, I mean, this is the same problem we had with the same in the.
Mr. Mayor, it's all in the executive summary report that both the Economic Development and Visitation and Promotions Committee have looked at, and that the community in the consultation leading up to it came up to, meaning the values, the agreed values of the Warren community are our people, environment, history and inclusivity. The community invites us to experience the feel, the same connection to areas they do. Friendliness, welcoming, appealing, inclusive and connect to country. It's all in your attached documents. That's the...
Well, let's refer to them then, so that there's a connection between what we're thinking Warren stands for in this resolution and a suite of documents. Because then this is all fine. I get all this, and this points us in the right direction. But I just think that first one's waffly if we don't have any a document to reference this off, or something that we're actually talking about. Because on its own, it doesn't mean a whole lot. And I'm not saying this to try to make it harder, but you know, according to a certain document or an agreed set of values from a workshop, something. At the moment, that doesn't do that. And these all become resolutions of council here today. And most of them, they all make a whole lot of sense, but it looks more like a charter than something to resolve here.
Councillor Derrick.
Yeah, I do take that point, and I guess the document that is being referenced is Warren Roden's Warren District's consultation report. So perhaps the recommendation could be simplified in endorsing
That document.
to say that we're endorsing the recommendations from that document rather than really.
You're talking about a particular one we need to add in is after values contained within the document. That's all we need to do, because the whole thing relates to, the subject is Warren and Visitor Economy Community Consultation Report, August 2002 Executive Summary. So, if you're worried about, so contained within the. But that's what it all relates to, is the documents that are attached.
Community communication.
I think what you said, this is a report as opposed to talking about. It's only a report. We're adopting the report, the executive summary. We're not adopting anything more than that, are we not?
The agreed values are the ones that are contained within the document. Contained within the Warren, and get rid of the second consultation report dash. Not dash, but August 2022 dash executive summary. That's the agreed values that the community consultation came up with. And there's nothing concerning about that. Our people, environment, history, inclusivity, values of the tourism experience, friendliness, welcoming, appealing, inclusive, and connection to country. the committee invites visitors to experience and feel the same connection to the area as they do.
And these were put at that meeting that you had with the stakeholders. They saw all of these 10 points. And they agreed.
Oh, sorry, through you, again, Mr. Mayor. So I guess the recommendation summary from Lauren Murder's report is basically, so that's, I'm looking at page 65. So that's basically the bulk of the words that we have in our recommendation, with the exception of the new entity, because because as we've said, the meeting in December, we did discuss that as a possibility for the future, but not something we're going to endorse as something we're doing now, so far as creating a new entity. So I guess that's where a lot of the wording has come from. And as far as that meeting on the 1st of December, certainly everyone at that meeting is very familiar with Lauren's report. This is our recommendation, so we did not go through this exact recommendation with that group, that meeting. So I guess I'm comfortable that everyone at that meeting is certainly in support of Lauren Murder's report, and the biggest sticking point was about the new entity, and whether that's something we're going to progress straight away, because that's what the report says that we should be doing, and we did agree to roll that back as something we consider in the future, but not immediately. So I can definitely see how it's a little bit convoluted. So please, by all means, ask more questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
To try to summarise what the chair of the Economic Development Promotions Committee said, is that there was a community consultation process that the Warren and Visitor Economy Community Consultation Report, August 22, summarised as an executive summary. There were 7 recommendations that are very detailed on page 65. The one contentious issue of certain members of the community was wanting, if you have a look at page 65, Councillor, was the recommendation 5, reform the Destination Quarry Masters Task Force and review the past action plan, but reinstate it as a legal entity, consider merging with RiverSmart, expanding the coverage and leverage of current resources with the more collaboration. Between all of us at the Economic Development Committee, we said, really, we want, I reported to say I don't agree with that recommendation. It should be as per what we have always talked about, because the Economic Development Promotions Committee has a subcommittee that's the Destination Quarry Marshes Task Force, and that our Economic Development and Visitation Manager is the one who facilitates, and we all facilitate it, instead of some other entity like RiverSmart facilitating and organising the Destination Quarry Marshes Task Force. All those recommendations went on the wayside until we actually could meet with the 4 main stakeholders, who included RiverSmart, to say we should be the ones facilitating this task force. With the 4 main stakeholders being RiverSmart, Council, Warren Chamber of Commerce and Macquarie Wetlands Association, with other ones eventually coming on board. But we're the main 4. But Council needs to be the one to facilitate everything, because we have the direction, eventually the staff, and an Economic Development Promotions Committee that actually is organised. The other recommendations are all reasonable and acceptable. And in this report, I've just expanded everything out to be 10 recommendations. And now I agree, so you know that the agreed values are the ones that are contained within the document that are reasonable. The community invites to experience the feel the same connection to the area as they do. Our Warren contains well-recognised natural assets that are complementary to the appealing facilities, welcoming locals and inclusive community that shares the importance of the assets they have. Our people, our environment, our history and inclusivity is our values.
Can I interrupt? Sorry. That was supposed to be a summary, and it wasn't. A couple of things. Right, so we had a list like this at the last committee meeting, and we are getting bogged down a little bit on material that should be handled at committee level, and then we bring this to council and already discussed. We rejected this list, if not exactly like this, at the last committee meeting and said, it's too soon, you haven't contacted the stakeholders, and we don't feel there's sufficient, this is from the committee meeting in December, we don't feel there's been sufficient consultation with the stakeholders before we go and saddle up to a new council-run organisation, which I might add I agree with, and I've said all along I've been contacted numerous times outside of this about this, and so I think I am fiercely in favour of council running this because there's a number of reasons, but mostly because there's throughput and turnover of people in those stakeholders, that continuity of people and access to other councils and a number of things like that. So I'm in favour of that. But this didn't go back through the committee. This is what we asked to have happen in December, that we went away, had the consultation and bring it back. We didn't do that because here it is. So this has not been through committee, and that's the point of committees. So now we've bogged down talking about this now, trying to get to the detail of how this is at the moment and about to vote on it. So I'm for it, don't get me wrong. But this is supposed to be what our committee is for, to discuss all of this, MOUs, relationships with tourism, or else there's no point having that committee if we're just going to do what we like and then bring it back to the very next council meeting, even though this list, as I remember, it was rejected at that committee meeting. Can take my point on that. We've truncated all that and just brought it straight back after the meeting.
Hey, Councillor Derrick has a comment.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. So I think, yes, it is getting overcomplicated. Yes, it could have gone back to committee. As I did say initially, I'm happy to put this recommendation forward, and I think it's more wording than it needs to be, in that recommendations 1, 2, 4 plus 10 are basically verbatim from Lauren Rover's report, so we're endorsing recommendations from that report. 5 to 9 is basically how that group would work, the mechanics of that, the role of the economic development and visitations manager, which were all things that were discussed at that meeting in December, which was well attended by all the key stakeholders. And I guess that's the reason that I'm comfortable putting this forward. But I guess the reason that we didn't want to progress with this at the November meeting was because that consultation had not taken place, and we felt that it was too early to make a recommendation. But
Let me clarify, Mr. Mayor, the consultation supposedly that didn't take place was in relation to the Macquarie Masters, Destination Macquarie Masters Task Force. I actually disagree in saying that all the consultation had taken place. It's just that others agitated and redirected our committee to actually just have to concentrate on that Destination Macquarie Masters Task Force. And no one has any real disagreement with 1, 2, 3, 4 and 10. It's just that went by the wayside because of what needed to happen with 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And it was a council resolution that I wanted to report to the council to say, guess what? We have sorted out the Destination Inquiry Masters Task Force by having a meeting, and recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 10 that went to Economic Development Committee were fantastic, all part of a document. I agree, expand out one so you know that actually the values that actually come from that report. No one, I don't think, disagrees with those values. I just want to move on instead of going to getting things organised as soon as possible. Now that I've got an economic development and visitation manager who gives that person a reasonable amount of direction, 1 to 10.
Sure, I'm done, but it's not a reason to bypass committee.
I think that's the issue, Councillor Brewer, that you're, perhaps it should have gone through committee first, then come back through. Is that the?
And I want to get it moving as well. I was quite frustrated at the end of 2022 that we weren't moving on it, and there was a very strong perception, and I said at that committee meeting, we need to be careful we don't cause vigilantism amongst those stakeholders, because we seem to be sitting on our hands. Let's get going. So, General Manager, you've done that. That's fantastic. But we've bypassed committee to some degree on that. I know you don't agree with that. That's fine. That's simply my point.
I think I agree with what you accepted and valid. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jarrett has one more comment question as Chair of the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you for entertaining my question. I will go back and say, perhaps I should have said that the community consultation was incomplete, or the committee felt that it was incomplete at November, which is why we put this report aside and went with the recommendation that we did at the November meeting. Again, I'm comfortable that the community consultation was finalised on these issues at the December meeting. Yes, I think yes. So I think the, as I said, the recommendations 1, 4 and 10, very straightforward. 5 to 9, I think that's all been cleared up. And again, I will say again that I'm very comfortable to progress this, taking the point that ideally in future we should be taking these reports back to committee first.
Thank you.
Make one tiny comment.
Yes.
I take Councillor Brewer's point and I agree with that, but I think the timing of Christmas, holidays, just, GM needed to get this really wrong with the new precedent. In normal circumstances.
We can talk about, I think the intention is correct. The process may not have been as tidy as it could well have been. But let's move on. Sorry, Councillor Walker.
I'm just wondering, just quickly, the new position that's been filled. So, is it now for this particular person to get in contact with all these other councils and start start part of the process?
Yes, one of the many multitude of jobs that the person's got.
Receive some help, because this is a massive undertaking for one person.
Mayor and I know.
She's very capable person. Councillor, let's see how she goes, and then we'll see how it progresses.
The opportunity to say I'm struggling here and I need some help with that sort of.
Let's wait and see. She's been paid at the highest level to do a good job. And her experience is commensurate with what's required. So let's see how it goes.
Regional wise, I'm helping General Manager's Advisory Committee, and we're both helping at full level of Alliance of Western Councils that are most of the councils.
Thank you.
Councillor, we had enough discussion on that. On
The movement sector, happy with that adjustment to number 1.
Yes. So that was Councillor Garrett and nothing further on item 6 of the General Manager's report pertaining to the item visitor economy consultation. I think Cash will put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Councillor, I think it might be worth adjourning just for a further break.
Oh, we're actually saying, instead of councillor Walker, just, you adjourn.
Yes. You want to know.
Yes.
It's prettier.
As council, we will resume the meeting. We move on to the reports of the Division Bank of Finance Administration, the first of those being the reconciliation certificate for your both November and December. Someone happy to move item one of the Division Bank of Finance Administration's report? Councillor Whiteley, thank you. Second. Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Whiteley.
I commend the report to council, and congratulate our acting person for doing two jobs.
No, thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Any comments, questions regarding item one, Division Bank of Finance Administration's report, reconciliation certificate? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item two, statement of rates and annual charges. And that the 11th committee. Someone happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Cruz. Second. Councillor Kenzie. Councillor Cruz.
No, I'll just move the recommendation, thank you.
Councillor, any comments, questions regarding reconciliation certificate? Nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item three, the Division Bank of Finance Administration report, the works progress report pertaining to finance administration projects. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Walker's happy to move that. Second. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Walker.
Just happy to move the recommendation. Thank you.
So the solar panels have been installed on this building, have they not?
Yes.
Yeah. So we can probably move that, progress that matter on, can we? The first of those items? Or not?
It will be removed at the next one.
Wednesday. Yeah. Any further comments, questions on item three? Nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Item four, the librarian's report. On one side, library operations. Someone happy to move the recommendation, the information we received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Brewer.
Just moving the recommendation, thank you, received and noted.
Any further comments, questions on item four regarding the librarian report?
What's happening now?
Yeah, it's been used to a good capacity, isn't it? And the staff are making themselves available with the outreach sources, outreach program. Nothing further on item four, the librarian report. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. And item 5 of the Division Bank of Finance Administration report outlining the 2023-2024 operational plan and estimates timetable. Someone happy to move the recommendation there? Councillor Kinsey, move that. Second one, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Kinsey.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Councillors, the dates that are contained in the report, please put them into your diary ahead of other staff sending you Outlook calendar invites. I'm already aware that in one date the mayor's not available, but put your dates in, so you can get along to workshops and things like that.
Acutely aware this is something we need to get right. And we need to follow the timetable so it's out to public exhibition at the appropriate time. So hence the reason for starting in what may seem an earlier time frame isn't necessary. We just have to have things done at the appropriate time. Nothing further on item 5, the Division Manager of Funds Administration's report. You put that all those in favour. Again, carried. Moving on to the reports of the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services. The first of those reports is the Works Progress Report pertaining to roads. Someone happy to move that report with information again be received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Second, Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I commend the report to the council and commenting, appreciating some of the extra work that some of the staff have been doing over this flood period, and hopefully we'll be back to normal operations.
So to the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services, how many crews have we got? Is everyone back from holidays at the moment, or how are we operating in terms of crews out, and when do we expect the 5th crew to be operational? Two questions.
Just where, we have 3 full crews at the moment.
3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the 5th crew, we are hopeful coming next week.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Any further comments, questions regarding the Works Progress Report? Councillor Walker, you?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm just wondering if it's right time-wise about the Wombiana Road, where it goes through that the causeway and then turns around towards the entrance to actually Wombiana. Is it on the agenda? I know there's lots of roads that probably needing attention, but it's quite bad in that section, especially that corner after the corner.
Sorry, just explain, can you be a little bit more specific? I'm not trying to visualise, is it?
Yeah, well, there's an obvious causeway, it's a low bit.
Yeah, yes, I think,
You pass Cheeks these,
yep, okay.
go through, and then you go a bit more, and there's a corner, and then
Yep.
it straightens up, and then there's the entrance to Wombiana itself.
Mayor, the problem is that there are actually 3 roads that actually are still closed. 3 roads in our Shire that are still closed, so we're actually trying to work on them first. Before someone, and we're telling everyone, don't go the Wombiana way, go through the advertising training. If they want to go that way, then go on the flood damage.
Alrighty.
Owengerard Road, you probably find it's open, but their side's still probably half a disaster. Wombiana Road is one of the ones that we're hoping to get. I think it's immediate restoration works. But it's sure, and I know it's the highway. It's our highway. But
I know, there's a lot of roads out there.
Obviously, engineering staff are well aware of it, Councillor Moore. We take that as a positive, and it will be addressed when it can be. That's right. So, as the Manager of Engineering Services is saying,
Man, a coffee shop.
there is possibility of immediate funding to get that area fixed up.
so we've got immediate. If you have a look on page 2. We actually got immediate reconstruction work funding approved on Allengerard Road, and that's why it's there at the moment. Some time ago, and that's why your major crew's there, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Biggest, so our crews is on Allengerard Road doing heavy patching, and we noticed towards the end of June, we've done some sealing works as well. So that's part of this immediate construction works.
And have a look when it's finished.
And that's a part.
Safe to draw.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Bruce?
Just a comment, I think Warren Shire is doing a very good job with their roads because you go out of the Shire and they're pretty ordinary. So, well done, they're doing a great job.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Yeah, I think it's difficult circumstances, but my firm belief is our staff have gone and taken real responsibility for their, the work that is being done and saying, let's, we need to step up as a council, and I'm really pleased that those comments are coming back to us. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1, the work's progress?
Just a question, so as the applications or for private works, is anyone brought that to your attention? It's become topical that even our state member is scrutinizing. Have we got any approaches from private people on their local roads, or have we developed a policy, or are we allowed to develop a policy?
Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Whitley is talking about the self-help scheme.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we're in the process of developing the guideline. We had a discussion with our insurance last week. They gave us some feedback which we incorporated. I'm putting that item on the agenda for the roads committee for further discussion.
Yeah, I think from what I'm understanding, and you've engineering services, the issue is just the public liability and the risk of how that would be undertaken. That discussion's taken place a couple of times with the insurance, so yeah. So, roads committee come up with something.
Hopefully you'll see the final guidelines that have been approved by insurer and the roads committee.
Which is, what's the roads committee doing?
On the 1st or the 7th or 8th or something like that.
Yeah. That's, so, Councillor Whiteley, so, those who are asking, you may be able to suggest to them, yes, that a decision will be forthcoming fairly shortly. Any further questions on item 1? Use managed engineering services report. Being nothing further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Item 2, use managed engineering services report pertaining to town services. I'm happy to move recommendation. Motion to receive and noted. Councillor Bruce, you have to move that, thank you. Second. Councillor Walker, Councillor Bruce.
Just moving the recommendation, thank you.
Mayor, the Divisional Manager Engineering Services, Town Services Manager, Infrastructure Projects Manager and General Manager went on a boat ride yesterday with the State Emergency Service to have a service and inspection and look at the levee and floodgate system along the river. Some of the floodgates are pretty hard to see because of the amount of growth. Just trying to make sure, rescope, get our scope right for design and extra works apart from that 163 metre or 180 metre section downstream of Lions Park. Just really making sure that we know what we're talking about when we tell that government department this is the scope. There are some locations where not the Lions Park design, but a rock needs to be thrown at the riverbank in a couple of locations, and certainly some work around stormwater gate outlets to get it back to appropriate standards. Yeah. Actually, State Emergency Service, one in their big, real big pump took us, so, it was actually, couldn't see everything. It needs to be another metre drop to just actually kind of have an old look at the old section. I'll call it the good part of Lions Park, but just to see exactly what was built there that we kind of want to duplicate.
So there was, Mr. Mayor, the jam, there was no, the lower end of town, there was no, where all that bungie is.
There's a couple of locations that need to do some work.
Yes.
See, where there's no levee, there's no need to, but where there's levee, there's a couple of locations that need rock protection work. Not to the same standard as I'll call it the police station section.
Yeah.
Any further questions, comments regarding item 2, Additional Engineering Services Report? None further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 3, Works Progress Report pertaining to the foot workshop. It's on Hamilton Murphy's recommendation, again, the information we received and noted. Mr. Councillor Walker, second Councillor Derrick, Councillor Walker.
I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thank you.
So all the borrowed tractors that were running pumps,
They've all gone except one sitting at the back, waiting for someone to collect.
and thank you. And no any dramas with any of those ones that need to be returned, everything was in good order. Yeah, service people that went back there.
Some of those people are pretty hard to keep happy with.
Thank you.
Cynicism.
One is just cynicism.
Sometimes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're always going to have to rely on some tractors and all things coming in. But part of that $7.1 million is to set up 5 or 6 locations that will be, you push a button on a big diesel pump, purchasing of some other skid mounted pumps. Our 10 sites pumps, in the end they're starting to run that, so they're now 25 years old. Some of them are going to have to be cannibalised to actually keep other ones going. Good example, you remember there was one on, I'll call it Stormwater Gate number 1. It had just chewed itself out completely and wasn't really pumping anything. That's why there was 2 tractors in and another couple of pumps there. And those types of impellers and things, all sorts of things starting to find it hard to replace. So part of the eventual process will be to canalise and get whatever number of pumps are right in those 6-inch pumps to canalising others. Tidy up our suction hoses, tidy up our, just everything you want to buy will be 6-inch anyway, so a lot of that gear will be the same. Never, when we had 41 locations, we still will require some help.
Councillor Whiteley, then Councillor Walker.
Yeah, there was a terrific amount of corporate knowledge that was put together during this last 6 months, and I just, that needs not to be lost. So when personnel change, we can go back to it. I think we as an organisation took a while to get knowledge on the ground to current personnel, and you know, even when you go back to Gary's flood meeting every day prior to the emergency meeting, you know, there was a lot of corporate knowledge that we've gained over the last 3 months for that, and obviously Gary's got that all itemised, but yeah, we make sure that that's available for the next generation.
Absolutely. Certainly a lot of file information. There's actually been procedures written that Maddox is actually, and still getting tidied up. Certainly very valuable to have all those maps that are showing what drainage system's actually going to each. And so it's all been good. I think we would still organise that old corporate knowledge to come in again in a month's time. It just helps again. And just in case if there's anything not thought of, the old hands can always remember. But it's starting to happen.
Just as an aside, in the political sphere, I think we should push that local control of our SES and our emergency. There is a political feeling that it should come back to councils and overall local control, and I think we should push that.
I think, Councillor Watt, in response to that, I think Warrandyte Council has shown itself to be competent. Others perhaps aren't as competent, and that's where the blanket sort of decision falls down a little bit from what you're speaking to politicians. But nonetheless, we will continue to pursue that thought, yes. But whether there's that political will to do that, I think the other issue is just making decisions on road closures, in particular highway closures. I think that's something that we need to have some sort of more collaborative approach to, rather than this dogmatic close now situation. That was probably the biggest stumbling block. Councillor Walker, I think you had no comment.
Well, that's probably a follow-on to what you're just saying. I mean, with the closure of the highway, I didn't realise that it's the police that make the decision, and I thought it was council. So I thought council probably knows better than. Is that right? That the police make the final decision?
The police can make the final decision if they want it. Normally, Transport for New South Wales on a state road, or even council on a state road if they're kind of the maintenance authority, which we kind of are.
Well, in this scenario, who made the decision?
The police. The police.
Well, that's what I heard. So I think it's a follow-on. I think council's in a better position to possibly make that.
Certainly using our corporate knowledge and old corporate knowledge. A lot of that went out the window, and probably we should leave that discussion to another time.
Yeah, that's point taken. Yeah. Thank you. Any further discussion on item 3, Division Manager Finance and using the Manager of Engineering Services report? Nothing further. Put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 1.
Mr. Mayor,
reports.
The Mental Health and Family Services had to go.
Yes.
Her grandfather and her husband's grandmother's funeral.
Yes. Item 1 of that report is the recommendation regarding the application approvals pertaining to the Mechanics Institute building. So I want to see that progressing. Happy to move that. Councillor Brewer, happy to move. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Brewer.
I don't have any questions relating to the resolution, thanks, but I do have a question about where we've got stakeholder consultation options in here. The manager of health and environment's not here, but that S101 EPA, what is that? Where it says that we issue S101 list for approvals monthly.
Yes,
What is it? What's that?
this report, and we advice to the relevant Department of Planning of our approvals, and also some advertising of our approvals. We send a lot more if we had paper.
So when it says community, I had a look for it last night on our webpage, just as well. I was fiddling around with those documents, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought, well, maybe it's because we don't have any, but we do, or did, or whatever. And also, in that, the documents that I was reading, that development approval guideline, or what it's called, it says that they expire 12 months after a new term of council, I think. Is that right, as well? For some of those?
Some documents do.
Yeah, right.
Only get the council saw about 45 of them all at once, and
Yeah.
so
that S101, is that
no, that's
Theme on the
section
website.
101 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act.
right? So it should be S.101, I think,
Or little s.
yeah. So for community to review. So is that possible for us?
No, only just to review means they see it. See approved development applications.
When? Where?
As I say, if we had a newspaper, everyone would see it all the time. I need to check that.
Well, I'm just concerned about that statement there then. Because I couldn't find it anywhere. More of a comment than anything.
I'm going to check to see where they're being put on the website.
Yep.
A chance within the next 2 weeks we'll be putting in a newspaper.
Well, no issue. Don't get yourself influenced. From the start, no morning sessions. I know, I'm looking on my left. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1? Councillor Derrick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So, awaiting further information on that. But my understanding is that that's just a list of what has been approved, which is basically the same as what's in this report here. So, yeah, just so aware that is.
It is problematic. We just like to know where
It's not pre-approval, it's just things that have been approved.
we just need to see something. Yep. No, thank you, Councillor Derrick. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1 of the Mental Health Developments report? Any further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, the Works Progress Report pertaining to Health and Development Services. Someone happy to move that information be received and noted? Councillor Brewer, thank you. Councillor Walker, Councillor Brewer.
Simply moving your recommendation. Thank you. I will make a comment though, whilst there's a break on the
Yes,
if you don't mind, Mr Mayor. The animal shelter replacement for $60,000, that's been on the cards for some time. With recent sort of cost excursions and those sorts of things, I imagine that figure is now insufficient. But I'm just...
I think the 60,000 was probably an insufficient number at the very beginning, but they're trying to investigate and scope it and work out exactly what's required.
Councillor Walker.
I'm just wondering, the early clear review, and if they had a consultant engaged, does that revised petition come to council?
Oh, good.
Is that how it works?
Just say again, councillor.
The LEP review, which is on the item 2, page 5, the last item.
Yep.
Does it come to council?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it has to be ratified by council. So
Does that happen?
I'm not too sure. Draft report provided for review. Yep. So this is to do with the LEP review.
We have a workshop on it.
Well, yeah. So I think it's my understanding will come back to the staff and for some sort of understanding, and then I would entirely believe the council will be responsible for final adoption of that plan. But I hope we'll have will we have a workshop prior to that?
If there's massive changes that worry, definitely.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the Manager of Development Services? If nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3 regarding the budget allocation to 56 Garden Avenue. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Brewer, you happy to move the recommendation? Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer.
I'd just like to make the comment that we do have to maintain our council assets. This is a classic example of the use of this restricted infrastructure and replacement reserve. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I can't see why we wouldn't do that, and I hope that $90,000 is sufficient to do it. It doesn't get you much reno these days.
Is the report say that probably needs close, there's $111,000 elsewhere plus this 90. And Mr. Mayor, that's the luck of the council, having someone who was prepared to put up for 29 years and now needs to make sure it's a bit more reasonable.
Yep. Just reading the, taking into consideration there was a surplus of funds of amount of 176,000 transferred infrastructure equipment replacement reserve. What was that from? That was just a carryover, or was it something else?
Yes, it was a carryover from the year before that was put into infrastructure reserve. So there's an example, 176 increase.
Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to hear about that. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3? Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Just having a conversation that sometimes it's better to do little bits along the way with the house instead of having this scenario appear, even if the residents happy with what they're living.
Exactly, Councillor. Take it on board.
As I know from home.
We're all experiencing these things, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, the positives on one side of the other side of the equation is there's no tenant at the moment, and you go and get in and get the job done properly.
Yeah.
Instead of
That's true.
But thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3 of the Manager of Health Development Services report? Nothing further. Put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 4 of the the Manager of Health and Development Services report pertaining to the contribution of $14,250 to the Sporting and Cultural Centre new flooring. Someone had to move that. Councillor Derrick, second, Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In the same vein as what Councillor Brewer said previously, we need to maintain our facilities, and this is certainly an area that gets well used by council and the community. So.
So this flooring, that's just in the kitchen area, is it? That's really, that's where I'm just double checking. Installation of an oven so this is a 50% contribution basically. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any further comments, questions on item 4? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Yeah, I couldn't understand the kitchen floor, you can see it's tile, carpet, it's not down there. Very good. Moving on to in our agenda, no, on item 10, no notice of motions or questions with notice. 11, I don't believe there are any matters of urgency unless the council has some matter of urgency they needed to raise. No. We do move on to item 12, which is in regard to the net waste tender for the processing of garden waste. For that to occur, we need to, as to, yeah, we need to adjourn this, do we need to adjourn this meeting, or do we just?
You move those.
We have to move to, okay. Someone happy to move those two items are on the screen that we move today, so that first the council proceedings of the committee of the whole closed council, and the second being that the press and the public be excluded from the committee of the whole council meeting. Councillor Whiteley and Councillor Kinsey, thank you. That confidential matter is on your. Okay, Councillors Whiteley and Kinsey, are you happy to move back into open council? Are you happy to move that way? Thank you. Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried.
What came out of committee of the whole closed council was a recommendation relating to the net waste tender for process of the garden, organics, wood and timber, a version 2 pricing matter. Council accepts the net waste tender F3928 for the processing garden, organics, wood and timber be awarded to Davis Earthmoving Price Limited for their tender price as set out in the report for the initial 2-year term with the option of a 2 by 12-month viable extensions, and 2, council delegates the authority to execute contracts with the processing garden, organics, wood and timber to the general manager and mayor, and be permission be granted for the use of the council seal on any relevant document if required.
Thank you. I believe we've had our discussion on that. Is there any further discussion now before we put that? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, that concludes our meeting for January. Look forward to seeing you, as many of you as possible, tomorrow morning in the presence of Keith, former speaker.